Greetings, dear listeners. Hope you're all doing well. I'd like to share with you the following email I received from a young woman in a Western Canadian city, which, as per the listener's request, will remain unidentified. She writes, "Like many people, I became restless while stuck at home during the lockdown and started to break the monotony by going for long walks. I live in a newer subdivision, which is on the edge of town. Walk down to the end of the street, and you're out on the bald prairie. I would go out once or twice a day, in the early morning and in the early evening, when there weren't many people around. I usually walked through the neighborhood, through the nearby park with its artificial lake, but sometimes I went out on the raw prairie itself. Of course, in those early days of the flu, this happened in early May, there weren't a lot of people around, and if you did encounter someone, you tried to avoid them to keep social distancing. On this day, when I took my morning walk, I noticed one other person, a man about 100 yards behind me. He seemed to be tall and thin, but that was all I could see at a distance. So I continued on my walk and forgot all about him. But when I went for my evening stroll, I saw the man again, and I began to think he might be following me. So I picked up my pace and tried to lose him in the local kids' park, only to find he was still there, behind me. The man was behind me all the way around the lake, and I was sure now he was following me. I was on the home stretch, but I didn't want him to know where I lived. I didn't know what to do, so I abruptly turned and walked up the driveway of a strange house and went into the backyard. I might have knocked on the back door and asked for help, but it didn't look like there was anyone home. I knew I couldn't stay in the backyard in case he followed me, but this house backed directly onto the prairie, so I ran out into it and kept on running. A short distance away was a shallow creek with a small thicket of trees and underbrush. I ran for it, thinking it would be a good place to hide, until I determined if the man was still following me or not. I thought about phoning or texting my boyfriend to come and get me, but I was afraid my pursuer would hear me or maybe see the light from my phone. I waited behind some bushes as the evening became progressively darker. I didn't see the man, and I was thinking about slowly making my way home when I got that awful feeling someone was watching me. I turned to my left and almost had a heart attack. A head floated in midair, and it wasn't practicing social distancing. I could feel its foul, hot breath on my face. An ugly guy with bad skin, bad hair, and red bulging eyes. And worst of all, it was puckering up its thin lips, as if for a kiss. I turned and ran out of there, and ran, back towards the subdivision. And the whole time, the head kept after me, literally flying through the air. I couldn't believe it, but it was actually flying, or at least moving through the air. I ran straight home. I was too terrified to care if the thing knew where I lived or not. I heard footsteps stumbling behind me, and throwing a quick glance over my shoulder, I saw a tall, dark shape stumbling after me. A man in hot pursuit. A man who didn't appear to have a head. No head! Was its head flying after me? Right behind me? Grinning at me? I practically broke down the door getting into the house, completely startling my boyfriend, who kept asking, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I was too hysterical to answer, but ran around, locking all the doors, closing all the drapes, and turning off all the lights, before collapsing into his arms. Eventually, I told him what happened. He didn't. He doesn't believe me. He says he does, but it's a white lie. After I told him what had happened, he went outside and looked around and didn't see the man or anything. He knows something unpleasant happened to me, but I know he can't help thinking I'm exaggerating, and that what I told him is impossible. So, now I'm stuck in the house. I keep away from the windows and I won't go outside. I won't go outside unless my boyfriend is with me. I was beginning to think I was going crazy until I found your channel and learned about the night floaters. I had never heard of them before. Do you have any advice as to what I can do? Well, dear listeners, I have been in touch with the young lady, and she's okay. She hasn't been molested since the incident, and she and her boyfriend will soon be moving away, so the problem will be solved by geography. But I think conditions may have been improving anyway. As lockdown restrictions have eased and things have been returning to normal, more people are out and about, both day and night, and the night floaters no longer rule the night and the streets. They like to keep their nefarious activities hidden, and every day there are more prying eyes, many more prying eyes. Too many to suit them. So yeah, the night floaters really do exist. They're out there. So keep those drapes shut at night, shut tight against their red and feral eyes, and then you may enjoy pleasant dreams. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring cryptids such as the night floaters, werewolves, and black-eyed children. I hope you will consider subscribing. Till midnight. Cheers.